So we talk a lot on this show about digital marketing for law firms, and today we're talking about SEO, search engine optimization. And before we dip in, I wanted to briefly explain what SEO is and why it's important. The goal of SEO is to get your site to show up in search results, naturally without paying. So let's start with your website. Your website has a distinct signature, a song it sings. All the words you use on your site, terms, phrases, location, links, pictures, videos are essentially instruments. And all of those signals combine to create your site, your signature song. But first, your site has to be seen or heard by the spiders, digital scanners that constantly zoom through the internet, reading all the metadata, listening to the instruments of every site to create a picture of it to then place on the search engines. So the first goal of SEO is to get seen by spiders. Let's go over it in a simplified but awesome way. The spider hits your web address. First, it scans content to figure out how old it is and where in the world it is.
They're in Alabama. Been here since 2013.
Then they connect your content with context.
These blogs and videos are about personal injury in Birmingham.
Check all your links from outside your site and from your site outwards.
They've been on local news, and the associates are publishing MedMal articles on LinkedIn.
And then the spiders make sure keywords on your site match what they have on record, along with existing business info from Google Maps.
8 a.m. to 5 p.m. Monday through Saturday, right by the pharmacy.
And then the whole picture comes together. So the song sounds like this. So the spider can safely say, after scanning your site, for literally a second, this is a well-known and established personal injury firm in Birmingham near the Rite Aid with a focus on MedMal content that's open on Saturday. The second goal of SEO is to get your site shown to clients when they search for legal services in their area. So the user, the potential client, and her searches, location, history, words, social signals are all connected to the spider crawl data that then connects the searcher with the sites that most likely match her query from her downtown Birmingham apartment when she types medical malpractice lawyer near me open on the weekends. Thanks to the solid SEO work before, the search engine knows the perfect song to sing to the searcher. But if one of your instruments aren't working or missing, then Google will pick the next website in line that does have everything rocking, and you'll be left on page 4. So SEO is like band rehearsal. If you are focused on the continuous strengthening of your signature works, when it comes time to perform, you'll get noticed for them. It's almost like the spiders are talent agents, and searchers are the musical venues. And really well-rehearsed bands with followers get the gigs, because people want to hear rock stars, not suffer through open mic night.
I guess I'll let the guitar do the talking for a start.
So you ready to make some music? Let's roll.
Lawsome, the podcast for law firms. Powered by ConsultWebs.
Welcome back to Lawsome, the only podcast for law firms that got kicked off of Google for having too many unexcused absences. I am Jake Sanders, and I do all my own stunts. And I'm joined by Paul Julius, and he tests all his own food for poison. Paul, how's that cheeseburger you got in the mail?
You know me, man. I can't pass up a cheeseburger.
And when it comes in the mail.
So far, yeah. Well, I mean, hey, free cheeseburger.
And it's a greasy envelope and...
Yeah. It's okay, though. I figure if there's any poison, maybe it leached out. So far, so good.
Yeah, good. No questions. Let's not be risky, and let's get to the business at hand. What is on the show today?
Yeah, let me put this burger down for a minute here. All right. On the show, we're going to talk about search engine optimization and how lawyers can use it for their firms. Then we discuss digital marketing with the Neil Patel. And then we fire up the predictive algorithm to ask our guests 5 questions we ask everyone.
Pull up a plate. It's the Hot Takes Buffet.
The Hot Take Buffet today is courtesy of Rachel Harmon on the ConsultWebs blog, who writes the scorching SEO basics for legal digital marketing. I'm telling you, though, It's amazing because it breaks it down from the beginning and then it gets a little bit in depth. And I think that's what me and Paul were tackling with the show was how in depth do you want to get? Because you can go deep. You can fall off. I think people have fallen off doing SEO. Just found SEO'd into a hole somewhere.
We warned you not to do that without secure safety lines.
You white hatted your black hat into a gray corner.
Something.
So
into the sandbox.
but that's a real thing. People out there are like, that's no joke, man.
Yeah.
So you suggested this blog. Taken in context, what is it that you're bringing to the table, and what's Rachel talking about here?
Building on your excellent sonic illustration of how things work with the search engines and a website and how people find things and how the search engine serves them up. This changes all the time. This is a big deal. This is the top 3 spots on Google. That's where the money is. I mean, there's no getting away from that. Like you said earlier, nobody is looking for page 2 or page 3.
Mm-hmm. They want the rock stars. Yeah. And even what you're talking about is organic, regardless of paid. We're not talking about the people that show up or the knowledge cards or this is part of the knowledge card stuff.
A knowledge card from Google is the feature image you find appearing at the top of your search results. They give users the general overview of the subject matter they're searching.
Yeah, it can be, but I think there's, and you're going to find some competition there, and that's not on accident. Avo, you'll see Avo results. Super lawyers, they spend good money and a serious amount of time making sure that their results stay up there, and there's ways to do that. And that's what we're talking about here is a little bit more towards how that happens. It's not magic.
Right.
It's a lot of hard, tedious work. There's a lot of checklists. There's a lot of adaptations and kind of on-the-fly decisions you have to make based on feedback you get. But I want to be really clear about one thing with SEO. You're not manipulating a search engine at its basis. You can't go in there and change something in Google. What you're doing is changing things on your website or getting people to link back to your website. So you have on-page optimization and off-page optimization. And that's really what this article breaks it down to. And typically on-page stuff is things that obviously you can do on your site. So like you spoke of earlier, helping those crawlers and spiders to understand what exactly is there. That's what a lot of this is. I mean, you really have to make sure you need to be able to understand how your site gets crawled, what's getting crawled, why. There's lots of stuff in there, how fast it's going to happen. I mean, site speed, mobile responsiveness, all kinds of stuff like that. So the pieces to take away from this article, the article is almost a metaphor for SEO itself. This is long. It's involved. But if you start to get through it, it explains things very well. But there is a lot of technical things you need to do right. There's a lot of even getting down to how information is presented on your website with regards to headings, making sure that certain keywords are emphasized but not overemphasized, right? So, that's where I'm at with this, and I hope that's making sense with the kind of on-page, off-page, on-site, off-site kind of thing.
Well, and it seems like the on-page is the ways in which you can help it perform, and the off-page stuff is the links and activities which it performs towards, and that's where it started to get me to think of search engine optimization as exposure for your brand assets. So off-page stuff is listed as blogs, articles, press releases, social stuff, link building. And then on-page stuff is how it performs, like uptime. And then is the content optimized to be found, site architecture and coding. And that's one of the things that I missed in the beginning was, and one thing that you brought to me was the domain authority. It's like, it is not only does this site say the right stuff or have the right words, because I think I was very content heavy. What you're saying is the manipulation of the search engines. You can't just keep linking to things and keyword stuffing stuff, because I think that's like 10 years old.
Yeah.
And things have moved on. And that's why in this blog that Rachel's talking about, it's much more comprehensive than just the content. And that's where I feel like I failed to address the complexity. And that's why, and then connecting that to exposing yourself online, to getting all the links, because that's what Neil talks about. Neil, we reached out to Neil Patel. This is like a huge name in online marketing, and just on a whim, emailed him. And he's like, yeah, I'll come on your show. It makes no sense because we're just some random podcast. He has his own podcast. He has his own YouTube channel. He has his own blog. He has all of these things set up, but he understands that this is a currency that exchanges hands. And SEO is sort of the technical nature of the investments. And you would want to have a broker and an investment scientist, doing things. And that's what SEO sort of is. And not to mix the metaphors too much, but I think the technical thing scares people away. But it shouldn't, because nothing should scare you away. All of the links, give me the links. All of the exposure, give me the exposure. Like, let's just get it out there, because as you spread it around, it spreads itself around. So at its heart, it just seems like it's something you have to do, but it's so complex and people just write it off. And that's why it's like, and if they don't, they invest in it, then they have anxiety because they're like, is it optimized yet? Or, I mean, I think at the core, it's like people are wondering, well, is it optimized yet? And so, well, Paul, yeah. I mean, is it
optimized?
I mean, as a farmer,
I'm going to increase my budget, throw some more SEO at that thing.
I want to turn the SEO up to 12. You know what I mean? I don't, is it a knob? It isn't a knob. What, explain that. It's not a temporal thing. No, it's a consistent thing, or what?
It's a strategy like anything else. And I think that's what this article lays out very well, what Neil embraces, particularly with, just spreading the word and getting it out there. Mm-hmm. But it is important just to say one thing. Our podcast is one thing, but, when it comes to search marketing and organic SEO and stuff like that, we do have some expertise in that area. So,
without a doubt.
I don't want to downplay that at all.
No, I mean, I don't personally. But as ConsultWebs, I mean, this is what you do, and this is what our company does.
It's part of what we do.
My God, yeah. I mean, but stressing the importance in getting over the complexity and stressing the necessity of it. And then addressing the accountability and the anxiety that it's associated with it, because you feel like you're just throwing money and you're like, well, is it fed enough? Is it optimized enough? I don't see it. Tell me.
And that's
that's from experience as a marketing director.
Absolutely. I mean, you and I, we worked with each other for that.
That's our relationship.
That's one of the most difficult things to try and lay out, is that, like, the search, the way this SEO works is like, slow pressure that eventually, breaks through the dam, as opposed to suddenly, spending $100,000 on TV ads. It's not the same, but in the long run, it's going to even out or actually be even better. But I'm really glad you said that, because that's a really important thing. We have a lot of clients who come to us and they're concerned about what am I getting? I've been burned before. Someone told me I was going to get to the first page of Google in 30 days.
And I'm paying to get to the first page of Google in 30 days. I mean, people are still sold on that, and it can happen, but where will you go after that?
Oh yeah. Well, and Google adjusts. I mean, that's something to keep in mind. All these things where they're, you mentioned it, 10 years ago, it was, keyword stuffing.
Stuff it up.
It's just an overwhelming amount of links and things.
Right.
Something that everybody should be aware of is that Google has people with PhDs in computer science and statistical analysis and behavior, all working on making sure that their algorithm gives you what is the best, quote, best result. So the idea that you're going to somehow game that in the long term is laughable.
In the short term, too.
Well, I mean, either way, it's not, you're going to get caught. And that's why these things change, is because that algorithm, it's a machine learning, it's an intelligence, it's learning. So what it knew 10 years ago is far from what it knows now. So a lot of things that it couldn't understand before, like how people behave on a site,
responsiveness,
that counts for a lot now.
And then responsiveness of other devices. How
Absolutely.
fast is this device pulling it up? Do I prefer these networks? It's amazing the layers of decision, but the complexity underlines the importance of getting somebody who kind of understands it, or at least approaching an understanding. And that's what I'm trying to do with that intro, trying to express it in a way that you can feel the magic of a site with social links, strong exposure, big brand stuff, getting your name out there. Once you have that stuff working together, it's all singing the same song.
Absolutely.
And so, and I think we talk about the complexity and it's very, and you have to, and local and this.
And we do.
It's very segmented, and at some points you're like, well, I don't even know what you're talking about. Well, it's dinner, or it's a whole thing together, So if we talk about the parts too much, as we say, you don't know the forest.
Well, I think it is. There's enough information out there. I mean, even this article, I think, is a really great place to start, because even though it does talk about some things that could be considered a little more technical than maybe the average person, with a website would understand, I think it paints a very clear picture of the concepts that you need to understand. And your intro, I think, gives a very good example of what you need to do if you're going to start going at this yourself. Don't just be like, well, I need to make sure my, structured, my schema says this, and optimize all this stuff and completely leave something else alone. You need to have that bigger picture understanding.
It's the whole song. And that's why you're like really strong on social, but you're not building links. You're just building links, but you don't have any content. You have a bunch of content, but it doesn't have keywords that match what your main blogs are about. So, it's sort of like it's a cohesive project that's very nuanced. So you need people who understand those flavors. So that's the heart of it. And Neil is a person who basically has built companies to understand these flavors, these engines, the way that these songs are understood. Crazy Egg is basically like a heat mapping thing about how search engine results are read and performed, and how site text is, should behave. And Kissmetrics is another company that he co-founded. He's running neilpatel.com. He has books out. It's brilliant. And he's on the show. So he gets into the weeds, sort of. We just got out of the weeds, so
look, there's nothing wrong with getting into the weeds,
right.
But at the same time, you have to look at it back up and make sure that you're doing this, because, what can happen is if your site isn't properly optimized, people are going to be seeing Avo results, or maybe you'll get Yelp reviews, but those will show up before your actual website does. And that's bad. That means that somehow other people's reflections of you on the internet are speaking for you.
And now, a Lawsome interview.
Neil Patel is a New York Times best-selling author, has co-founded such successful digital marketing companies as Crazy Egg, Kissmetrics, has worked to grow notable companies like Amazon, NBC, Viacom, was named as one of the top 100 entrepreneurs by President Obama and the United Nations, is currently CEO of the Neil Patel Marketing Agency, helping businesses get more traffic and found on the web, and as if that wasn't enough. Neil adds one more link to the chain with an appearance on the Lawson podcast. Neil, thank you so much for being here.
Thanks for having me.
Giving away expertise, it seems like that's a theme in your work, and it's a barrier for lawyers in marketing. If people want the goods, they got to pay for it. So what's your philosophy here, and how can it apply to marketing in the legal profession?
Yeah, so in the legal profession, and it's funny, I've worked with so many law firms and lawyers over the years, even the big sites like the Fine Laws of the world that are driving traffic, or LegalZoom, although LegalZoom's more so competing, but Fine Laws driving traffic to other lawyers. Mm-hmm. And the big thing that we found is lawyers want to write too technical content. Like if you want to do well in the law space, whether it's business law or DUI related or personal injury, whatever it may be, write simple content that everyone else can understand. Keep in mind, your customer isn't a lawyer. So if you're writing content that's above their head and too technical and they're not going to understand it, you're not going to generate a lead.
Totally. That's it. And so we talk a lot too to lawyers about different platforms being more social, being more kind of like you say, trying to get down and not talking over people's heads. But something that comes up a lot that we see is with regards to Facebook. So there's, these privacy violations and data breaches, and then there's brand safety concerns like on YouTube. If you're putting it out there, how do you personally deal with protecting your digital assets, and what advice do you give to your clients?
Yeah, so you're talking about you put your brand out there, you have your own assets. People are going to end up taking them. They're going to abuse them, use them. And it's funny, a lot of lawyers want to sue over it. I look at it as it's okay. If they take your content, they link back to you, it's driving you traffic. If they take your assets, they mention you, they don't have your permission, but they're linking to you and they're mentioning you, it's extra free press. Removing those things or letting people have them doesn't really do much of a difference. If they use them, and instead of telling them to remove them or trying to charge them a fee for it, try to get them to mention you. It's so much easier because you're getting extra brand awareness and traffic versus getting people to take it down or trying to charge them a fee. And when you try charging them a fee or going after them, most of the times you're not going to get much, if anything, anyways.
Exactly.
Fair. But we get a lot of times too now, we have clients calling us up and being like, I just heard that Facebook was mining data and selling it to people. And it's bad. Social media is bad. How do you, is there a certain level of insulation, or do you have some kind of reassurance for people and just being like, hey, it's not everybody out there trying to, get you to download spyware through their app,
Or how do you cover your, assets?
Yeah, absolutely.
Well, if you're worried about Facebook and Google and all these sites, then you can't really use them. And whether you like it or hate it, you're worried about spyware, them selling your data. Credit card companies have more data on you than probably anyone else.
Good point.
There's a point where you're just going to have to accept it. I know that's not the answer most people want, but if you don't like it, then don't use those sites. Don't use those platforms. Don't get business from them as well.
True that.
That's a damn good point.
Yeah, for sure. And about whitelisting, blacklisting sites. I mean, do you do that for SEO clients? I mean, there are dangerous parts of publication. I mean, there is bad exposure, or is that a thing?
There is bad exposure, but you can't always control everything. If you do your best, put your best foot forward, you try to help people out, provide amazing information, hopefully you don't have too much negative press.
So voice search, smart speakers in the home. What are your thoughts on the future of voice search? Is it going to be a battle for placement or a battle for access to the devices themselves? Starting to think about SERP, results, things coming up on search engines. If I'm calling it out on a voice search, what is the future going to look like there? In the future, if somebody says, hey, Google, give me a list of lawyers near me, what do you think the future of search and voice is going to look like?
Well, according to ComScore, by 2020, half the searches will be voice search, just to give you an idea of how popular it's going to be. Whether people like it or not, that is where things are moving. Now, when it comes to Google, they typically pull from the top when it comes to voice search. So you want to be up there. Now, let's go over a few things. One, if your site isn't HTTPS, make sure it is HTTPS. Two, think about what phrases people are typing in. So whatever your industry is, you can use free tools like Ubersuggest, type in keywords related to your space. It'll tell you all the other things people type in. When people are doing a search on Google, it's not just, hey, I'm looking for this phrase. They're typically doing a search because they're looking for a solution to their problem. So everything needs to be solution, problem oriented. Now, when you're creating that text to answer those questions, make sure you're brief, to the point, descriptive. And if you do those kind of things, you should show up more for voice search. More so, you should be displayed more for voice search. Not really displayed, but the voice search is going to be pulling from your site. Now, when you're doing all of this, think of it this way. In the legal space especially, people are going to end up typing in questions like, how much do personal injury lawyers cost in Los Angeles, right? They're going to end up asking questions related to a law firm, and you want to end up being there, and you can even have a range. Well, typically you're going to end up paying $100 to $300 per hour, or you're going to end up paying on a contingency basis where if you win, you pay. If you don't win, you pay zero, right? So as a lawyer, they're not really law firms typically aren't thinking about voice search yet. Doesn't even matter if half the searches by 2020 will be voice search. From everything I know about the industry, people in the legal space aren't really there yet, which is great opportunity for anyone listening.
Exactly right, sir.
Well, and to just touch on something that you were talking about there, when people start looking search behavior between voice and desktop or typing, I guess, would be different because I don't want to say it understands. When you're talking, it understands. I saw years ago, trust me, I'm going somewhere with this. I swear to God.
Yeah, go.
So years ago at SMX, I saw Matt Cutts talking about predictive search on his phone. And he took out his phone and he was like, hey, Google, where's the Space Needle? It says Space Needle's in Washington, Seattle, Washington. Then he goes, how tall is it? Tells it how tall. Any restaurants nearby? Yeah, there's 100. How about Italian? There's 10. What's the nearest one? And he said, look, the point is, after I said Space Needle, it assumed that everything I was following up with was about the Space Needle. So there's a different element to search and this predictive kind of stuff that I think people don't take into account. And this is now. This is happening. This isn't like some new technology. Is there any way that people can approach this without getting too far into the weeds?
No, not that I know. It's like an all or nothing.
Totally, bro.
I mean,
really
yeah.
Well, we were just talking about microdosing drugs. It's like, do you want to do the drugs or you don't? It's like, I just want to sort of do it. Like, I want to micro SEO optimize, everything. And you're like, okay, in a micro way. Okay, right. And it's a good question, but I think lawyers are particularly feeling inundated because there is a lot of tactical nature to the marketing decisions that they could go for. And I think what they're pining for is just some simplicity. And in the way that you talked about reducing the complexity in the language you use, then sort of thinking about the query sequences, HTTPS, all that stuff. But in regards, it's one of the competitive verticals in SEO. I mean, it's $1 billion, digital advertising, which is a slice, but it's a pretty decent slice. So people are throwing tons of money. So it's like in regards to like competition keywords of high, high cost. What do you think it's most important for law firms and digital marketers working with them to do now?
With law firms, I would focus on local SEO. Right now, there's too many law firms just spending money on paid ads. And I kid you not, the field is wide open for local SEO for law firms. Like, that's what I would do right away. Law is such a big area, such a huge total addressable market. Might as well go after it in every single local region. and people think like, well, I'm in this city, so this is all I can do. Well, no, go after all the other surrounding cities as well, because it's not like you have your bar, which is once you pass your bar, it's state by state basis, not city by city.
Mm-hmm.
Absolutely.
Dude,
Well,
that's great.
yeah, and so getting to some of these local levels, lawyers, they get a lot of crap for running cheesy lawyer ads,
Ooh, yeah.
both online and in other forms of media. I think we all know what we're talking about.
Loved one hurt your car. You need a lawyer.
Well, anyway, I'm not going into it, but what do you think law firms are missing in their marketing messages?
What law firms are missing in their marketing messages is something that is very consumer focused. And what I mean by this is if you watch a lot of the TV commercials, you see a lot of the campaigns, it's like, we'll fight for you. We're here to help you, and some of them talk about what they're doing. And if you look at what they're wearing, they're all wearing all these suits. They don't have that personal feeling. It's not just about, hey, we're going to help you win. It's about you care. It's, like if you have some medical issue, we care. We want to help you solve it. It's not just about getting you money. It's about making sure this doesn't happen again to other people. That personal touch, we just don't see that too often.
Man. Yeah, I'm with you. And so, dude, Neil, we can't thank you enough. And we know you're crunched for time. So if people want to know more about how to get traffic, how can they find you, Neil Patel, on the web?
NeilPatel.com. NeilPatel.com.
5 questions we ask everyone.
What was the last book you read?
The last book I read was... I'm trying to think what the last book I read. I don't read that often. I'm trying to think. Probably maybe Principles by Ray Dalio.
Nice.
Good one.
I read online for probably 2-3 hours a day.
Exactly.
But book-wise, I don't do too many physical books. That one I did. I'll do a lot of books on tape.
Yeah.
That was a physical book that I read.
Solid. Okay, number 2. What is your favorite place?
My favorite place is Seattle, Washington.
Hell yeah.
I like the rain. When there's a ton of rain, you end up working more.
It's beautiful. I was only there for that one conference. It blew me away. What a cool
place,
city.
Yeah.
Everything was so green. All right, number 3. What sites, blogs, newsletters, or podcasts do you regularly check in with?
Sure. So Brian Dean has a site called Backlinko that I like. Search Engine Land has a lot of marketing news. I have a podcast called Marketing School. Larry Kim creates good content out there. His latest company is called Mobile Monkey. That one's awesome as well. They have some good content there as well.
Yeah, love Larry Kim. Okay, number 4. If you were stranded on a desert island and could only pick one condiment to take with you, what would it be?
One condiment?
One condiment.
Sriracha.
Yeah, nice.
Spicy.
I don't know how it tastes with coconuts, but I'll give it a try.
You never know. It's optimistic. Hopefully you'll catch some fish and stuff. Anyway, all right, we made it to the end. Number 5. After a long day or long week at work, how do you relax and unwind?
I watch Netflix. I really do Netflix and chill, and not Netflix and chill with those teens consider, because theirs is different meaning. But I really do Netflix and chill. I'll watch it with my laptop and then fall asleep.
For show notes, links, and info, go to thelawsonepodcast.com or follow us on Twitter or Facebook. Be sure to leave us a review and rating in iTunes or wherever you find the you listen to. Until next week, stay lawsome.